This movie unfolds as a compelling true life story. In Mujin, Injo, a newly appointed art teacher at Benevolence Academy, receives a call from his mother inquiring about his arrival at the school. Concerned about his daughter, who cried for him for hours before falling asleep, Injo's mother advises him to focus on his job, emphasizing its hard-won nature. While driving, he narrowly avoids an accident with a truck, leaving his car damaged. Calling for a repairman, Injo grows frustrated with the slow pace of the repairs. Exhausted, he inquires about the possibility of taking a bus to the academy, only to be informed that the school is situated in a remote area, and a taxi would cost him at least 50,000 won. Undeterred, Injo prepares to leave in his unrepaired car when he inadvertently hits another vehicle. The irate lady in the other car initially confronts him but later apologizes for her reaction, offering him a ride. During the drive, Injo shares that he will be teaching at the academy, surprising his companion. She drops him off at the Benevolence Academy, a school for hearing-impaired children in Mujin, North Jeolla Province. Upon entering, Injo attempts to greet two girls using sign language, but they ignore him and walk away. He proceeds to the headmaster's office, where a portrait painted by his professor catches his attention. The headmaster reveals that he attended the same school as Injo's professor. As Injo is introduced as the new art tutor, the administrative head enters the scene, casting a cold gaze at him before instructing him to follow. Outside the headmaster's office, the administrative head shamelessly requests a bribe, asserting that the teacher's position doesn't come without a cost. Later that night, Injo calls his mother to inform her about the demand for money. She is shocked to hear that they are asking for 50 million won, even considering it a discounted rate since he was recommended by his professor. In his first day of class, Injo encounters a chilly reception from his students, despite an overall successful session. One student, Min-soo, arrives late with visible bruises on his face. Concerned, Injo reports the incident to another teacher, who reveals that Min-soo is struggling with depression after losing his brother in a train accident. Injo expresses his observations that all the students seem distant, and the teacher explains that their disabilities make them feel incomplete. Still at work, Injo delves into Min-soo's student profile, discovering that his father is mentally challenged, and his mother's whereabouts are unknown. He also investigates Jin Yuri, a student with intellectual disabilities. Going through the profiles of each student, Injo gains a deeper understanding of their challenges. After work, Injo decides to go home but calls his mother to check on his sick daughter. His mother reveals she has gathered the money he requested. Suddenly, he hears a child's cry and rushes to track the source. The cry emanates from the girl's bathroom, and as he attempts to check on the situation, a security guard intervenes. The guard explains that the children often make strange sounds due to boredom and yell louder because they are deaf. The next day, the headmaster and an officer engage in a discussion about the children, making insensitive remarks about their inability to hear. In-ho enters with his development funds payment, and the officer suggests going for a drink. The scene then shifts to Mr. Baker, a teacher, physically abusing Min-soo for staring at him. In-ho intervenes, trying to stop the abuse, and learns that Min-soo had secretly left the dormitory at night with two girls. Mr. Baker is subsequently summoned by the headmaster, who advises Min-soo to open up to Injo more. In-ho, not knowing what to do, watches as the kid leaves. After work, before getting in his vehicle, In-ho sees Jin Yuri sitting at the edge of the window. He tries telling her to leave but fails, so he runs back in to get her away from the window. She seems scared as he lifts her, so he apologizes for scaring her and gives her the rag doll he picked from the ground before turning to leave. Jin immediately holds him, trying to stop him from leaving before allowing her to take him to a staircase leading to a room before turning back. Injo goes into the room where he finds a lady trying to drown one of the female students in a washing machine. He stops her. She tells him she's disciplining her students as she's the dormitory superintendent, Yun-ja-ae, and warns that he shouldn't intervene. He threatens to get her thrown into jail if she doesn't stop. The student she had been disciplining had passed out, so Injo takes her to the hospital. He calls the lady who had driven him to the school earlier, who seems very shocked as she sees the student. The following day, Injo is invited to the headmaster's office where he's told to forgive Yun-ja-ae as she's been offered a strict warning. Injo tells them the student been admitted to the hospital, but she'd be discharged the following day. The headmaster and admin head then take it upon themselves to handle the discharge process. In class, Injo's students seem less interested in their tasks. He goes to meet Yuri to tell her that Yun-do couldn't make it to class as she wasn't feeling well. He tries to cheer her up and suggests they draw each other. She refuses, telling him she has bruises and scars. He assures her that it isn't a problem and promises to draw her beautifully. He draws her, and she seems very happy with her portrait. After work, he's told Yeoman-do was almost raped by the headmaster. He He doesn't believe it until he's shown proof. A paper containing what Yun-do had written. It shows that Yeoman-do wasn't the only one who was violated. There were few perpetrators, including Mr. Bak, who had even sexually abused boys. In-jo decides to file a police report, but he's told that the cops had sent the children who reported the case back to school, and then the kids got beaten as revenge. The lady who had beaten up Yun-do is the adopted daughter of the founder of the academy, and she and the headmaster are lovers. When she cut Yun-do's hair, she threatened that if she flirts with the headmaster, she's dead. At that moment, Yun-ja-ae, the admin head, and the headmaster walk into the hospital when Yun-do is admitted, asking for her. They're given access into the ward before In-jo could get to them. When In-jo enters the ward, he finds it empty initially but later discovers Yun-do hiding in a wardrobe, where she had been beaten again. In-jo heads over to the Mujin Human Rights Center, where Seo Eugene, the lady who had helped him earlier, works. Together, they interview Yun-do, who courageously shares everything she has faced at the academy. Yun-do reveals that the headmaster had taken her to his office and attempted to rape her. Out of fear, she ran out into the bathroom, and he followed her, attacking her. That was when In-ju had heard the noise earlier from the ladies' bathroom. Yuri is also called in, but instead of speaking, she breaks into tears. Yun-do recounts how she had witnessed her friend getting molested and had been threatened by the headmaster if she told anyone about what she had seen. Not long after, his mother comes to visit with his child. She cooks for the headmaster, telling her son she wants him to get in the headmaster's good books. In-jo tries to protest but doesn't want to tell her what he's found out. His mother blames him for not being too serious with his life. He doesn't stop working with Seo Eugene to punish the people who had sexually abused the students. Seo Eugene tries to submit proof of the sexual assaults going on in the school, but no one is taking her serious as the school is reputable. She finally decides to go to the prosecutor herself. She gets a call that Seoul TV station wants to cover the case. Back in the academy, Mr. Bak is seen beating up Min-soo as he asks for Yun-do and Yuri's location in front of the headmaster. In-ju just stands in the front of the office as he hears everything happening. Mr. Bak is told to leave the headmaster's office to somewhere else quieter. As he's about to leave, he sees In-ho waiting outside but ignores him as he leaves with the child. In-ho runs after Mr. Bak and hits a flower pot on his head before taking the kid to the Mujin Human Rights Center. Before the kid talks, he asks In-ho to promise to punish the evildoers. He tells them about his younger brother who was also abused by Mr. Bak. He tells them Mr. Bak had taken he and his brother to his house where he had abused them both physically and sexually. This gets aired all over Seoul and everyone starts getting very interested in the case. Not long after, Mr. Bak gets arrested. He tries to protest, saying he's a devoted Christian and an elder in his church. The headmaster and other teachers get arrested too. They're arrested by someone who they give gifts to all the time. He tells them he has to. As the case has caused a lot of commotion, he tells them to find a lawyer who started as a judge and warns them to act well behaved. The Christian society also begin protesting for Mr. Bak's release. In court, Mr. Bak and the headmaster act as humble as possible as they deny all the allegations made against them. He explains to them that he had pitted the deaf and mute, having used all his life savings to build an institution for them. Unfortunately, the majority of those attending the court case are also deaf and mute, and there is no provision made for a sign language instructor. Additionally, some Christians begin to pray for the release of their loved ones, and a few even start to bully In-jo. In-jo handles these challenges calmly but ends up being fired from his job. Despite this setback, he chooses not to share the news with his mother, knowing she would blame him for everything. As the court case continues, everything said seems to be against In-jo and his cause. Min-soo, Yun-do and Yuri were taken in by In-jo and Seo Eugene. One day, at the beach, Yun-do tells In-jo how she'd once come to the beach with her father, then she could still hear the sounds of the waves but now it's very silent. In-jo assures her that the most beautiful things in the world are things that can't be heard or touched. Still in the court case, Yun-do is brought out. The headmaster denies knowing her. Yun-do tells the court that she had been molested times without number, and it started when she was in 3rd grade. She tells the court the admin head normally gives her money after sleeping with her. She describes how he normally ties her arms and legs. The admin head immediately says it's a lie. That night, Seo Eugene is told that the court is trying to agree to a settlement and Min-soo and Yuri's parents had agreed to it. Yun has no parents, so all that's left is her court case. In-ho is called by his professor who tries to tell him to drop the case and even offers him money and promises to take care of Yun-do. He informs In-ho that he had secured another contract for him at a different school in Seoul. In-jo refuses, and he's told to think about his daughter before making any decision. Outside, In-ho channels his frustration onto his car, releasing the built-up tension. With the settlement now over, he takes care of Yun-do. While doing so, In-ho's mother finds him and starts ranting about him lying about being busy in school. He chooses to ignore her and walks away with Yun. She then questions if Yun is more important than his own child. In response, he tells her that he was there when Yun was abused, but he was helpless. If he gives up now, he wouldn't be confident in being a good father to his own daughter. In court, Yun-do is asked to point out the headmaster, but she struggles as the headmaster and the administrative head are identical twins. Eventually, she recognizes him using a hand sign he had used when threatening to kill her. She's tested when she claims to be able to hear music despite being deaf. At first, it seems ridiculous, especially when she mentions hearing music during her friend's molestation. However, it's proven that she can actually hear music despite her deafness. After the court case, In-ho receives food from his mother, who instructs him to return home when he's done with everything she's doing. Meanwhile, Min-soo's grandmother accepts the contract that brings an end to Min-soo's case. Unfortunately, Min-soo is told he can no longer give his testimony, as his grandmother has forgiven Mr. Bak. This news breaks his heart, and he begins to weep, insisting that Mr. Bak killed his brother and emphasizing that he hasn't forgiven Bak yet. Later that night, In-ho is awakened by Yun, who tells him about the movie she had seen in the headmaster's office. He and Seo Eugene sneak into the headmaster's office that night to search for the disc. There, they find a security camera. They decide to take it to the prosecutor as evidence. However, upon presenting it, he tells them they can't use that evidence in court. On the final day of the trial, it is revealed that the families of the children have agreed on a settlement. The accused, who have no criminal record and are seen as contributors to the community, receive relatively lenient sentences. Bak is sentenced to 8 months of imprisonment and a 2-year probation, while the headmaster is sentenced to 6 months of imprisonment and 1 year of probation. The courtroom is filled with dismay as some people break down in tears. In-ho watches helplessly as the accused and their lawyers celebrate the victory, their smiles contrasting sharply with the sorrow of Min-soo and Yun-do, who weep bitterly upon hearing the sentence. After the court case, feeling heartbroken and believing he has failed the kids, In-ho decides to leave Mujin without informing the children. Shortly after, he receives a call from Seo Eugene, informing him that Min-soo has gone after Mr. Bak seeking revenge. Immediately, In-ho turns back. In the rain, as Bam is returning home, he gets a surprise visit from Min-soo. Neglecting the just concluded trial, Mr. Bak attempts to seduce him again, but this time, he gets stabbed in the gut. In retaliation, Mr. Bak starts hitting Min-soo. Despite the incoming train, they continue their violent struggle until it tragically ends both of their lives. In-ho and Seo Eugene watch the tragic events unfold, feeling utterly helpless. Following this incident, a burial is held in honor of Min-soo. Outside, a peaceful demonstration by the deaf and mute community takes place, seeking justice. They direct their anger towards the judge who handled the case, refusing to disperse even when sprayed by the police. In-ho, carrying Min-soo's picture, joins the demonstration, highlighting Min-soo's inability to hear or speak. During this, he falls multiple times and faces harassment from the police, who not only break Min-soo's picture but also arrest In-ho. Watching in tears, Yun and her friend witness this heartbreaking scene. Months later, In-ho has left Mujin, and Eugene writes a letter to him, providing insight into the events that have transpired. She mentions that their appeal has been arrested mainly due to the settlement agreed upon by the families. Many people have volunteered to support Yun and the other kids who left the academy. Yuri is undergoing psychological treatment, and Yun-do expresses her aspiration to become an art teacher, inspired by In-ho. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. I would also appreciate a comment because it helps like you can't even imagine. It's a new channel and every bit of support counts.